Builders of Authority Live is an event for entrepreneurs and individuals that are looking to take their personal brands to the next level. We had over 60 attendees here at today's event. We had 8 incredible speakers and sessions where we were going through the individual tactics and strategies, the different pillars that you need to have to help grow and scale your business to the next level. So if you weren't here, next time we throw an event, you have to get in this room. There's so much valuable information, but all of this networking, all the people that are here, that's really what also makes coming to an event like this so special. We'll see you at the next Builders Authority Live, and thank you for the support.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. I'm really excited for today's episode. I am joined by someone that I had the pleasure of meeting last year after I was on another podcast, and that podcast host was like, Adam, you need to meet Corey Quinn. And he was telling me a little bit about Corey's story, and I was like, absolutely. So Corey and I hopped on Zoom. I ended up being a guest on his podcast. We had the opportunity to meet at an event last year in Costa Rica, which is awesome. And it's been really incredible to see some of the stuff that he's doing. And we'll dive into some of that stuff here today. But he is the author of Anyone, Not Everyone, a proven system to escape founder-led sales. And I'm actually reading that book right now myself. And Corey had sent me a DM after he saw me posted on my story, asking me my initial thoughts already. And I was like, well, if I would have read this book years ago, one, I'd probably still be in the digital marketing agency space running an agency. But more importantly, I am reading it now because I think a lot of the techniques and the strategies that Corey walks through in that book, it's business to business. It doesn't really matter. It is just pertaining, obviously, to digital agency space, which it hit home for me of like, wow, Corey laid the blueprint of all the hurdles that most people end up finding out years later. So, Corey, welcome to the show, man.
Adam, it's a pleasure and an honor. I'm really excited to be here. And man, I've just been enjoying watching you, and you've really done some amazing things with this new company. I'm excited to see you continue to grow. Yeah, man, excited to be here.
I appreciate that. And tell the audience a little bit. Obviously, I know a lot about you, but tell the audience a little bit about who Corey Quinn is.
Sure. So I have 17 years in the agency space and running. I started my career, you'll love this, as a freelancer. I had my first gig at age 8 when I became a childhood actor. And I started in the world's first Chicken McNuggets commercial. Okay. And I proceeded to be a child actor. I think we did another 4 national commercials for big brands. And then I decided to go back to being a normal kid. But yeah, my journey is really around being an entrepreneur and being a salesperson. And eventually my last role in in-house role was as the chief marketing officer of a digital marketing agency called Scorpion. I joined that company in 2015. We had, at that time, $20 million in annual revenue, which by any definition is a successful agency. Yeah. But the CEO founder who brought me in, he wanted more, right? He wanted to help more people and grow and expand. And so as a result of working there and the work we did there, we grew from 20 million to 150 million in annual recurring revenue. And I've since stepped back from that role, and I've now stepped into a consulting, coaching, and training business that I've launched that specifically helps agency founders to escape founder-led sales. And that was part of the impetus behind the book, Anyone, Not Everyone. Thanks for the plug on that. And effectively, this book, gosh, took me about 2 years to write, and the focus of it is in taking what we did that was different at Scorpion, different from my whole career. We had this amazing win, and really codifying the best practices and the principles to help founders of all shapes and sizes to be able to build a scalable business.
I just love the story. I love, obviously, knowing Scorpion, right? Knowing the trajectory where you guys were at versus where they're at now. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And when I was on your podcast, obviously, I've listened to quite a few of the episodes where your guests just have like these incredible stories of where they're getting super, super hyper focused on their ideal client, their ideal vertical. And your book does a great job of simplifying what it looks like to actually understand who your ideal client is. So can you just give, I mean, everybody needs to go buy the book. I'm reading it right now in full transparency, but can you give the audience, again, just a high level of like the importance of it and then some strategies in terms of why or how you get there?
Sure. Well, so it's really no secret that a specialist has the ability to charge more, to be able to systematize their business, be able to have a process-driven approach, which of course leads to better sales and better profit, and also puts you in a position to be able to sell quicker than if you were more of a generalist, right? And I think the challenge that many entrepreneurs get into is that they start off as a generalist, right? As an agency owner or any kind of business owner, you're just going to, especially when it comes to professional services, you want to say yes. You want to say yes to anyone who will be willing to give you money. And that's the typical path that an agency owner will take. I'll talk about agency owners because that's my world, but of course your listeners can apply it to their world. As a result of saying yes to a lot of different clients, you end up in some ways eventually painting yourself into kind of a corner as it relates to growth. And what I mean by that is I'll share a quick story of one of my clients. His name's Tyler. He is an agency founder. He's very well connected, has he's in a lot of networks. He's in EO, he's in Vistage, and so on and so forth. And as a result of being so well connected, he's built this multi-million-dollar agency that has clients that span from manufacturers to plastic surgeons to dentists to attorneys to even a retail store, right? You may understand this as a previous agency owner, right? And the challenge that he had was that he just got sick of not knowing like what the specific service or what he'd be on calls with clients and have to remind himself before getting on the call, like, okay, are we talking about cases? Are we talking about patients? Are we talking about foot traffic into a retail store? Like what exactly? And just all of this variety caused a lot of just overhead, really created a tax for him and his business. And he came to me and said, I'm unable to escape founder-led sales. I'm unable to scale this thing because I'm losing clients. I'm losing employees because there's just too much work. Can you help me? And that's a good example of someone, a typical agency owner, a business owner who has taken more of a generalist approach. No scalability, no systems, everything's bespoke. And that becomes hard after a while.
Yeah. I feel like Tyler also was named Adam at one point. Yeah. Well, I think as you're getting started, right, and you're trying to find ways to grow your business, you almost feel like you have to say yes to almost everything. And even when you're like, hey, I'm working with roofers or I'm working with landscapers or whatever it is, right? You almost feel like you have to say yes to every single roofer at that point. Cause I got to a point where it was just like, hey, I'm going with home services, and that helped out a ton. But even then it's like, that's still almost too broad in so many different instances for a smaller agency, but you end up saying yes to all the people you shouldn't. And when you say yes to those people, you're saying no to more of the people that you could actually do business with and that are going to pay you what you're worth and value your agency or your business. And again, this is across the board. It's just really relevant to agency and all the different offerings people have. So beyond that, though, talk about like the actual service offering. So the deliverable, those types of things, like when an agency or when a business might offer everything under the sun versus being like the SEO company for X, Y, and Z.
So the way I think about it is I want to become, as a business owner, I want to become an expert in the world or the best in the world at solving a specific problem for a specific audience. So that may mean, becoming the best at solving organic ranking for a specific audience. And it really happens to depend on your skill set and what makes you passionate as a founder. And so the challenge that I see that founders sometimes face is when they become specializing in, let's say, a platform or a tool, for instance, SEO, or it could be like the example I love to give is becoming an expert in Vine, right? And Vine is sort of, it's gone, but it's like TikTok for those of us who weren't around back in those days, but like Vine is like TikTok, but it was owned by Twitter. Well, those agencies who were the Vine expert, they specialized in a platform. Now their entire business and their lifeline, effectively from a business perspective, is dependent on that platform. Well, what happens if the platform goes away, right? Then you're in jeopardy. Like your entire business model is gone. That's why I believe it's more preferable to specialize in a audience, in a vertical market, because attorneys are not going away, CPAs are not going away, roofers are not going away. They're always going to have a growth problem. The tools you use may change and may evolve over time, and that's fine. But as long as you position yourself as that go-to person who is an expert in solving the growth problem for roofers in this example, it doesn't really matter what tool you use because they effectively don't care.
Yeah. So how did the whole, because I love the tagline or the focus of founder-led sales and escaping that, because that was a problem I literally dealt with until we did about $1.5 million in revenue. And it's a problem, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me to the business owner, to the agency owner that's like, well, I don't want to bring on anyone to do sales. I want to do it all myself because I'm the best salesperson that's out there and no one else can do it better.
Then I would say, good on you. Have fun. Because ultimately it depends. Like every business is different. Every business owner is different. Some want to stay small. They want to own sales and run that. There is, however, you get in a situation where you have sort of a conflict between, hey, I want to scale this business to $5, $10, $15 million and eventually sell it one day. Well, an acquirer is not going to be as interested in your business if the business is depending on you to run the sales department. Same is true for customer support and marketing and everything else, right? Yeah. So if you desire to build more of a scalable business, one that doesn't require you to be involved in the day-to-day, then eventually you're going to have to find a way to step away from sales in such a way that sales continues at the same pace or even better without your direct involvement. And it's in those cases when a founder has that desire, that's when I can potentially help them. But if they're happy with sales, I'm not going to try and convince them otherwise.
Well, I think for me in my journey is I wanted to get out of sales. I like doing it and I was good at doing it. But once we broke $1 million, I couldn't keep up with the demand of where we were trying to go versus churn. Right. So there's only so much Adam, time, right, that's going out there to take the discovery calls, to do the proposals, to do all that stuff. So it was right at about 1.5 when we finally brought on someone to help out the sales, and it changed the trajectory in which we did a lot of stuff. But and this is one thing, I was actually on a podcast yesterday talking about it with somebody that's in the agency space, and I was like, what helped us get to that point was my relationships, very similar to Tyler that you were talking about earlier, was my personal brand, was those things. But I didn't do a good job in the beginning of building like the sales department outside of Adam. So people are signing up with me. Everybody wants to work with Adam, whatever, right? But then I didn't do a good job as I should have done of transferring the relationship after that. It was always like Adam is the CEO, but he's also the salesperson. And anytime you have a problem, feel free to also call Adam above and beyond who you already talk to. Well, then when you're working with hundreds of clients, it becomes a problem. So there's that whole aspect of removing yourself from just being a point of contact for anyone and everyone.
So, Dan Martell talks about a buyback ladder, which is that sales is typically the last thing that you would step away from as a founder. The first one is typically you get an EA, an executive assistant. The second one is that you bring in people to effectively allow you to run the operations side of the business without you being directly involved. In order to do that as a founder, typically you're doing that work, and then eventually you build systems that people can step in, SOPs and processes that they can come in, do the operations, the fulfillment side of the business. The next one is, according to Dan, is marketing. So, taking a process-driven approach to marketing your business, finding someone who could step in and use the processes and the systems that you've created for marketing. And sales is typically the last one because the founder is probably the best person in the building, so to speak, to do the sales because they're the most passionate. They know most about the product. They probably know most about the client and the problems they solve. The challenge is when you are more of a generalist and you serve businesses of all shapes and sizes, is that the sale is very bespoke, meaning that the founder has to be able to sell a manufacturing deal and a dental deal and a retail furniture store deal. And that requires the founder to be able to make promises on behalf of the agency, in this case, that he's going to make sure are fulfilled. But it's effectively impossible to expect a salesperson from the outside who is not a founder to be able to set the agency and the client up for success. And the reason why ultimately is there's not a repeatable system. You have to approach sales from a systematic perspective. And the way you do that is you remove the variability out of the process by selling the same product to the same audience over and over and over again. And once you're able to do that and establish a system, then you're able to hand it off with a lot less risk of being sucked back into sales.
Yeah. I think it's what a lot of people struggle with is, again, they fumble their way around, right? They're like, hey, I can go sell the client, but I have no idea if the service is actually going to be fulfilled, which is why so many people struggle to work with marketing agencies because they've had that experience where they bought with someone that was so confident that felt like, oh my gosh, this is the best marketing agency since sliced bread. And then they're completely unfulfilled in the process.
Yeah. And you mentioned about churn. I think that, to your point, a lot of agency founders focus on the sales side and then they neglect the fulfillment side. And really the number one metric in an agency is lifetime value. Like that is the competitive advantage that you have, because I'll tell you at Scorpion, we were able to outspend our competitors because our LTV, our lifetime value, was so much greater than them. So for example, let's say us and a competitor charged $1,000 a month for a client. The competitor only kept them for 12 months. We kept them for 36 months. So the value of a new client to us was $36,000. To our competitors was $12,000. Okay.
Yeah.
We were able to spend a lot more to acquire that customer because we knew we'd make it back on the back end. We could spend $10,000 to acquire that customer theoretically. Well, that would be 85% of our competitors' total revenue. They would never do that. So that allowed us to have a lot bigger marketing budgets.
Yeah.
And do cool things.
I think that's an incredible, like, kind of segue in talking about your marketing and building a brand, right? Because when you have those things, there's the tangible stuff where it's like they have built so much brand equity, right? That people already know who they are. Or I know in your book, right, where people were literally doing searches and they were searching for their competitors and they saw the Scorpion logo down there and they're like, hey, I'm going to reach out and go do that. That's an aspect. But being able to go to these conferences and build these industry relations partnerships, those things aren't cheap. But when you're verticalized and you have the budget because you know your numbers, it kind of helps you play a different game, or play the same game, but at a different level. So talk to us a little bit about what that kind of did as well.
Yeah, well, so the typical agency, when they're marketing themselves, they kind of do the peanut butter marketing approach, where they're spreading their thin marketing resources over a lot of different things, kind of doing a little bit here and there, and they're not getting any results. And so the benefit of having focus on a vertical market is that everything becomes extremely clear as day, a lot easier to know exactly where to spend money and what to do. So for instance, you know which lists to build, you know which SEO articles to write, you know which podcasts to start, you know which associations to join, you know which influencers you need to build relationships with, so on and so forth. So the first step is really getting clear on who that vertical market is. And once you have that, you'll have a real clear direction on, okay, well, based on this vertical, they have, we can run these ads on Facebook. We can launch a specific YouTube channel or a podcast specifically speaking to their problems. We could do outbound, right? We can do outbound to this specific list and really be really clear about the problems we solve and the offers that are going to be meaningful to them. And as you mentioned around the conferences and the associations, at the end of the day, all of the vertical go-to-market playbook is all about building trusted relationships within the network. And one of the best ways you could do that, one of the best ways you could do that is to go and spend time with them at their conferences. go and be belly to belly. Let them look at you in your eyes and get to see that, hey, you are a real person. You are a trustworthy person. You're just not going to sell them a big empty promise. And as a result of, going to conferences, maybe not the first year, and maybe the second year, or definitely the third year of them seeing you over and over, they're going to begin to be interested in developing a relationship with you. They're going to begin to trust you. And that's when you begin to see some of the big benefits of verticalizing, which, by the way, I just got off a phone with one of my clients, and they were focusing on restoration as a vertical. And when they started focusing just a couple months ago on restoration, they had 3 restoration clients. As a result of focusing, they now have 17 and growing, right? And what they said was that they said 2 things. Number one, that the last sales call, the last one who came in, last client, the most recent client that came in from this vertical, it was a 4-day sales motion. So they had the call, 4 days later, they had the sales. The fastest that they closed the deal by far in the agency history. That's number one. Number 2 is that they said that the founder said that, it's kind of like a snowball. Like the 6th sale is easier than the 5th sale, and that's easier than the 4th sale. And every sale that they get, it makes it easier and easier because they have all this credibility that they're building up within the restoration field that does a lot of the selling for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're spread out across a lot of different verticals, you don't have that same impact.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those, I'm sure you probably hear those stories quite often when people get super, super tunnel vision and focus on that. I think a lot of people struggle with the mindset of like, they've been at certain instances where in order to pay their bills, they needed to take on certain clients, but sometimes that mindset doesn't change. I knew I struggled with that. Like when I was in zero, when I was just getting started, I kind of had the same mindset as I had when I was 7 figures. If I want to go, well, you reach a certain point where you outgrow that mindset and you need to shift to be like, hey, I need to get focused on this. So what are some of the struggles that you typically hear from people that are like, well, Corey, I see, and I know exactly what you're talking about, but I have this going on.
Honestly, I think, Adam, it goes right back to the LTV question, because you can, building a 7-figure business is by no means easy. But if the quality of that revenue is not good, meaning it's churning out and you're having to replace it all the time, a tremendous amount of work, that's not a business anyone wants to build. Right? That's a very difficult business to run, and so that's why I go back to right. And we've all been there, right? So the business to run is one that people continually stay with you, especially in an agency business where there is this idea of a monthly recurring. You have this retention idea, and the reason why people retain is that you're meeting the promises that you made in the sales front. You're adding value, and you're probably exceeding what they're expecting, and that should be part of the business plan. And so it's much better to build a 7-figure business that has a great retention rate. Unfortunately, it requires the founder, to your point, to say no to bad revenue. And that's just hard. I think as humans, we have a bias within us that says, I'm not going to turn away opportunity. Like, I'm not going to shrink my target market down from infinity down to 1,000. That would be crazy. Why would I do that? And the reality is that the data supports this idea of taking a vertical market approach. They grow faster than generalists. They get sold for more money. Acquirers really look for vertically focused agencies because they have better retention. The employees stay longer. The clients are happier, and the founder is not directly involved. So it's not a data problem. It's I think it's a barrier. It's a mindset. To your point, it's a belief problem that they will only, in my experiences, they will only be willing to go down this road after they've tried everything else.
Yeah, that is true. Well, you have to learn it the hard way, as with a lot of stuff. But like, I just reading your book, kind of starting the business again, starting a different business again. It's just like, it's refreshing knowing that I'm not starting over or doing something different from zero. I'm starting with all the experience, the ups and the downs, and the lessons that I learned along the way. But people don't usually start out and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go do this the way that I probably should. You got to go learn the hard way.
Yeah. And that's fine too. And I think there's a benefit to that, which is that you begin to understand what you're good at, what the market wants, what you're able to charge. And after a couple years in, when you have all that experience, that data to reflect on, you're actually in a really good position to make a high quality decision on where do we want to focus now. Now that we've been down this road, we've had the bumps in the road, these things are working, these things are not. But hey, we really love working with manufacturers, and they, our manufacturing clients, we have just a couple, but gosh, they're so fun to work with. And I really love that industry. And I really want to, I would love to lean into that. That's a high quality decision versus kind of putting a finger in the air and saying, let's see, which market has a lot of advertisers and they spend a lot. That's typically not the right questions to be asking when choosing.
Not the right place to go. So the last question I want to ask you before we wrap up and make sure that people can stay in touch with you, go buy the book, etc., is, let's just say whether it's an agency owner or business, and you're like, hey, I've just listened to this live with Corey. I'm going to go buy his book. I'm going to do all this stuff. What is that? And I know you talk about it in the book, but like, what does a gradual process look like? Some people might be hearing what you're saying and is like, oh my gosh, I really do like working with manufacturers or X, Y, and Z, but there's only 2 or 3 of them and I have 40, 50 clients. Do I just basically cut all the other ones off and go start again for those 3 or 4? Or what does that process generalized typically look like?
Absolutely. I am not advocating for burning the ships, doing like a hard cut and just saying, we were this, now we're this. And the reality is that, and this is how it typically happens. And I know this from my work with my clients and interviewing a lot of people on my podcast who've been down this road, starting as a generalist and identifying a vertical market and then specializing, is that you do not fire all your current clients. Especially if you're able to keep them happy and doesn't create a tax on your business. It's interesting that they don't actually care that you were a generalist and now you're focused on manufacturers. They actually probably are not going to really even know. They don't go to your website. It's not something that's going to be a thing. The only reason why they would care is if you stop providing the service that they've always expected to get from you, right? So you keep them as clients as a way for you to build out this specialization, for you to really focus going forward into, let's say, as you said, manufacturing. What that means is specifically is you may want to reposition the website. You may want to talk about your specialization on your homepage, or maybe you set up a separate website, or maybe a section of your website that's dedicated to this vertical. And going forward, all of the marketing and the sales effort that you put out is all focused on that vertical market. And as you begin to find success, build your client list in manufacturing, over time, it'll be obvious that you need to do more of maybe a pronounced pivot, but it doesn't have to be that way from the start.
No, that's great advice, and definitely something I think people overthink, right? They're like, oh, I want to go do it, but I can't, right? Well, it's a gradual approach. It's not a one day I wake up and I burn the ships. It's hey, how do I, moving forward from July 1st, go and get super hyper focused on this is who I'm going to serve and this is how we're going to do it.
Right. And being committed to that vertical and committed to becoming the best in the world at solving a specific problem for them. That commitment alone will really help you to get to a point where you're adding tremendous value relative to all the other options that your target audience are looking at. So that commitment as a founder is really powerful. And by doing that alone, you will start to see results come in, right? So that is a big part of it. For sure.
And I think a lot of people, and we'll end on this, but I think a lot of people assume if I go specialize, I'm not going to be able to build as big of a business as I would if I'm a generalist. And I'm here to tell you that in certain instances, maybe yes, maybe no, but most of the agencies that I know that are not just the most, like the largest ones, but usually the ones that are most profitable have the lowest churn, highest lifetime value, and the owners of those businesses are super happy. They're usually specialized.
Yes, exactly. Because of all the benefits you mentioned are built in to that business model. And at the end of the day, would you rather be the founder of a $10 million company that has 100% churn every year, that has razor thin profit margins, or would you rather be the CEO of a $5 million company with 40% margins?
Yeah. Completely different. Well, Corey, thank you so much, man. It's always great chatting with you. Really looking forward to continue seeing all the amazing things that you continue to do. Where can people stay connected with you online, and where can people buy your book?
Thank you. So 2 places, definitely check out anyonenoteveryone.com. On the website, you're actually able to start listening to the book today. So there's an audiobook version. It's available for any of your listeners. You can start listening to it literally right now. Go to anyonenoteveryone.com. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm fairly active there, posting daily tips, ideas, and would love to connect with any of your listeners there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Corey. This was awesome, and appreciate you always.
Likewise.
And thanks to everyone that tuned in today and will watch the replay. Today's training is sponsored by Go High Level. Go High Level is the first ever all-in-one platform that will give you the tools, resources, and support you need in order to grow and scale your business, especially on the marketing and CRM side. We've been using it now since 2020 and implemented it for a lot of our clients. There is a link that you'll see in the description of this video that you'll get a 30-day free trial, as well as some incredible bonuses from our Builders of Authority Mastermind and course. And then we do have a couple tickets left, 3 general admissions tickets left for our event next week here in St. Louis. So if you are in the area or want to come in for the event, we still do have a couple tickets left, and we'll see you all next week, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.